And oh, I'll cut that beginning. Forgot what I was doing. Welcome to Let's Talk About the Deep Stuff. I'm your host, Sean Neese. On this show, we have off the cuff and candid conversations about the deep topics in the world. And today I wanted to talk about feeling full within. Like, I feel like sometimes there's an emptiness within, looking for meaning that sometimes we're looking to fill, and sometimes substances is a way that we cope with that, and that could become destructive, or other destructive ways we cope with that. And I wanted to talk about finding that peace and happiness within, without the use of substances, and finding a more permanent fulfillment and feeling um, full inside, like the cup, your inner cup being full instead of half empty, or however the saying goes. But today I also have a guest with me today to talk about this topic, because I know this is something he talks about a lot and through his social media and everything. His name is Liam, and I'll kind of let him go from here and introduce himself further.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Sean, for having me on. It's good to be here. I've been listening to your episodes since you touched base to me, and
Nice.
I really love the conversations that you've been having, and it's really awesome to be here. I love this topic. It's something that I have experience with on a variety ends of the spectrum. You know, I have experience using different kinds of substances and being totally uh, free from that. And I've gone in cycles of it, and I've had periods where I'm in control on both ends and out of control on both ends. So I really relate to it, and I think it's a valuable conversation. Yeah, for me, I'm a musician, so living a creative and musical life has an interesting overlap that can kind of create a unique lens that I have. But fundamentally, what I see as an issue here and a place to find and take action is looking at unmet needs. I really think that when people are leaning towards substances or anything outside of themselves in a destructive way, it's because there's something inside that isn't being nourished, and maybe things outside that aren't being met. You know, it's so easy to make any kind of rash, impulsive decision when you're hungry and you don't have food, or when you're thirsty. And so there are all these ways where people are systemically or just naturally not having their needs met, or failing to do that.
Yeah,
So,
and that
yeah,
that
I
also
really
made me think like someone might get into a toxic relationship for that reason too, because they need that validation. They don't feel full with themselves. Yeah.
exactly. And I like the way you frame that too, like feeling full of yourself and feeling a sense of wholeness, I think, is something that is very universal. And I think that when we feel supported by our environment and can support ourselves, we naturally feel our energy and our being more present. We feel confident about ourselves. We communicate and express ourselves more, and our cup runneth over.
Yeah, yeah. When we're more connected to ourselves, we connect better with others. Because otherwise, you're looking for then you aren't looking for validation, and you're more authentic, and then you can only connect to people through the authenticity. So,
Exactly.
and I find as a creative person, I have multiple creative passions that, like music. I do writing and acting too, and this podcast is another outlet too, in a way. I feel like that kind of helps fill me up. Like I'm sure you can relate to that, like with your music and everything.
Yeah, well, I think it's important because even if you have food, have shelter, have all your basic needs met, you have people around you that are loving and supportive, if you don't have a means of embodying something that feels true to you, I feel like you don't feel full either. It's like a stagnant pond versus a beautiful flowing river or a waterfall. So the podcast, the music, it's all like a container that we get to fill up. And I think what I notice is, especially when you're doing good and you're feeling nourished, there's this urge to share that. And if you can't share it, it almost gets painful, and it's like a weight that you carry as a creative. Like, I need to get this out, whether it's
Yeah,
positive or negative,
Yeah, like sometimes you just need an outlet, or sometimes it could be even just getting negative emotions out. Like if you need to, if
Yeah.
you went through something, like I remember in one newsletter I wrote out some, just like some stuff I was going through and thinking about that, but like then it came out as a newsletter. A lot of people, I got good feedback about people related to it, and I think some people like some of my solo episodes too, where I was kind of just like working things out in my head and put it into kind of a comedic, philosophical rant in a podcast that people like. So
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I think the way that we connect to other people is through positive and negative expressions. And I don't think either one is inherently good or bad. I think we can overly express positive things and ignore the negative, and we can overly express negative things and ignore the positive. But I think that connection is another need that we have. And sometimes people will limit themselves. Like if they're like, oh, I'm feeling negative, so now I'm not allowed to connect with people. I have to isolate. And it's like, no, you need to connect. That's a fundamental need. And people need to learn how to share a language of processing negative things and processing grief and stuff like that. And that actually forms the basis for deeper positive connections too. So I think it's interesting how we can get in those cycles of removing ourselves from the actions and environments that support us, um, when we start losing it a little bit. It can really spiral.
yeah, and I think that's an issue with the when people just talk about positive thinking, because I think that if you're just, oh, I got to get rid of the negative thoughts and think positively, you're repressing something that's there that needs to be dealt with. Like, why is that negative thought? Like, you don't get anywhere just by repressing things or ignoring them. As you have to accept that you have the negative thoughts, and then you go from there, and you can kind of detach yourself from it or understand it, and not shame yourself for thinking negatively, because that doesn't help anything either.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the shame is just more negativity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's about integrating it, right? And seeing that positivity feels great. It's awesome when you have positive thoughts and you have a whole day that just feels supportive. But that's not the baseline of reality. That's just part of reality. And the baseline is we're always changing. So if you can embrace what's ever there, that's actually positive. And I think that's what can be confusing sometimes. It's like, how do I embrace something negative? How do I embrace something painful? And then how do I embrace letting go of positivity when it's naturally leaving, when that's what feels good? So I think
Yeah,
there's an element of just removing what you feel and just using your awareness and a sense of acceptance to guide you there.
you kind of gotta just accept the flow of life, and you gotta know there's gonna be ups and downs. It's not gonna just be one way the whole
Exactly.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like a deeper sense of peace, I think, comes about when we do that
Oh, your
because there
your
is.
video froze.
Oh, see.
Wait, just repeat that, because it like
Okay.
froze and then cut part. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, when I started approaching situations in my life with more acceptance for letting positive things ebb and flow and letting negative things ebb and flow, what I found was more inherent truths about how I exist through the world, like understanding more of my general emotional capacity, that the more I could withstand and be present with pain, the more I ended up experiencing joy, and
Mhm.
focusing on not holding on to one or the other, but just being as present as I can for whatever comes, then I do better and better. And so I find that I can face more and more painful situations and experience more and more joy. And so by being intentional rather than solely positive, I start to choose more what my pain is oriented towards. So rather than having pain because of addiction or abusive situations, I have pain because that's the path I have to walk to create what I want to create in the world. And I'm willing to accept it. And by going through the pain with presence, I gain the capacity to hold the beautiful thing that I'm trying to live in. Whereas I think if we jump right to the great thing that we want, we taste it for a moment and then we lose it. Like we can't hold it. It's too precious, you know? And so I think viewing things as a process and focusing on supporting our needs so that we can just go through the day to day and grow like one day at a time, 1% better, and towards a direction that we think would be better for us. We never really know, but we
Yeah,
try.
and you have to accept the present first. And I was just thinking about, like the power of the present, because I was sometimes I think like, oh, I should have taken advantage of these opportunities at this one point. I should have done this and that. But then I look back to that time and I'm like, wait, during that time I was regretting stuff from earlier that I should have done this and that. So like if I had been present then, it's like the moment is now. Like look what's
Hmm.
now and what you can achieve. Yeah.
Yeah, and like really developing a practice of understanding the now moment can be really empowering. Like I still have doubts, and I think I always will have doubts and fears that come up, but my ability to accept them and contextualize them has improved greatly. So now when I see doubt and fear come up in me, it doesn't start to dictate what I actually believe about myself. I just feel how much emotion I have about it. And I notice how many thoughts I have about it. And I use that as a tool, like an indicator. Like I can sit there and recognize that my doubts are trying to highlight something for me about myself. So it can be
Oh,
like a light in
it
the
cut a
dark.
bit when you said, "I just fit with
Oh shoot.
emotion." Yeah, just start that sentence over, just so it's
What
like
was the
smooth.
sentence?
You said, "I just fit with the emotion" or something. It was along
Oh
those
yeah,
lines.
so I learned how to sit with the emotion better, and I see the thoughts, and I'm basically able to create some space, a buffer zone between those thoughts and feelings and my truest self and what I believe to be accurate in my reality. So I think we all kind of start from this place where everything is really connected and associated with each other, but we can create space to observe it and start to recognize that thoughts are thoughts and feelings are feelings. And that gives us freedom to do more investigation into the process. Like a lot of times, doubts are actually telling me places where I need more clarity,
Mhm.
and not necessarily the story associated with the doubts isn't necessarily true. So it might be saying, oh, I'm not good enough to be the musician I want to be, but the way that I interpret that when I create space is, oh, I don't really know what it is that I want to be as a musician. And so now there's a space where the doubt can come in and say, that's because you suck.
Hmm.
And
So
it's
you're
like, wait,
saying
that's
like
not
if
true.
you're saying like the more you know exactly what it is you want, the less doubts you'll have because you'll know. Is that
In that
yeah?
instance, yeah, right. So by going through this process of relating to my doubts and creating so much space, I now understand my internal landscape better. So I know for me, in certain instances, if doubt comes up, it's related to a specific set of stories and beliefs that I don't even have to be afraid of anymore. Because as soon as I get overwhelmed by it, I know how to reorient myself to be productive and useful. And that allows me then to meet the doubt and fear with a loving energy and kind of balance it out. And it's like a magnet, neutralizing
Yeah.
the field a bit.
And how'd you get on this path? Because I know you said that now you found that substances aren't a good way to deal with that. Like how'd you get on this whole path and then got to the like where you found that substances weren't fulfilling and also just getting on this path in general?
Yeah, well, I had a history of using substances socially, like alcohol and cannabis
Hmm.
primarily. Um, Not really ever much more than that. And I was never too interested in like the party aspects of it, but I'm a really fun and really sociable person. So what that did is it put me and mixed me in with other people's energy. So like a lot of people, I eased into peer pressure and started to embody the things my peers were doing. And so through different phases of my life, I had different peer groups and different ways I was absorbing other people's patterns. And it was around the time of COVID where I had a wake up call where I realized that I was consistently not feeling good energy. And there were a few things that I knew I was doing that were not helping me. And one was not getting good sleep, not eating good food, not exercising, and drinking a lot of alcohol and smoking cannabis and cigarettes. And all of that was just compounding until I couldn't drink enough coffee to get awake and feel good, you know?
Yeah.
And it was just obvious. I'm keep repeating these patterns and it's not helping me. So I woke up one day and I felt horrible. And I told myself, I'm not going to get up and start my day until I do something different. You know, I felt my energy was so just gross and stagnant, and so much depressive pressure was there. I didn't want to exist, but I'm also, I get very activated when I meet that feeling. So some people kind of shut down and they get lost in that. But for me, I get activated and I want to face it and run towards it. So I held myself in a moment there and I just said, I don't know what to do, but I'm going to do something different. I'm not going to do the same thing I do every day. So when I woke up and the people I lived with are like, hey, what's up, dude? You want to vape? You want to this? You want to that? I was just like, no, I'm doing something different. I went to the bathroom. I got a glass of water and I just started doing the opposite of what I would usually do in that situation. And it revealed to me that I always knew how to do these basic things. I knew how to get up and just take space for myself. I knew how to get water and get hydrated in the morning. I knew how to eat breakfast. And so the opposite of what I was doing was just meeting my needs fundamentally. And because I wasn't prioritizing myself and my well-being, and people around me weren't supporting that and embodying that, it just fell through the wayside. And I just let it happen as a young kid in my 20s. But as soon as I started intentionally meeting those needs, I felt exponentially better every single day. And that ended up progressing me through a lot of experiences, but it culminated with really understanding that not only was I not meeting my needs, but the substances and the ways that I was using it were specifically blocking me from certain aspects of my dream. Like, I've always wanted to be a musician and I've always wanted to cultivate a singing voice because I play many instruments, I do many things, but I never knew how to sing. And I had some issues with my throat in my late teens and early 20s, and it created a lot of physical and emotional trauma around singing. But I was smoking all the time. And I realized that if I smoked, that meant that a cascade of behavioral patterns and beliefs would come up where I would never sing. So for some people, you know, smoking one cigarette, taking one hit isn't a big deal, and they see it as a small act. But for me, if I did that, this whole wall of my dreams would come up. Because as soon as that goes into my body, everything about me shifts and says, I can't do the thing that I want to do. And the same thing with alcohol in different ways.
So that was kind of like a trauma response in a way, right? I guess.
Yeah, well, it was very layered because if my throat wasn't hydrated, if I didn't sleep well, I would literally have so much tension and discomfort in my throat that to practice singing wouldn't be accessible. So if I inhale something, it makes it so that I can't show up for practice. You know, it's like trying to play football and like you didn't get a good night's sleep. You just can't do that over and over. And so it's that, and then also just the effect of the substance can kind of put you very much in your head and get you kind of foggy. And so it was a compounding effect. So I realized this was a limiting factor, but I could control this. And if I said, I'm not going to smoke, then that put a pressure on me to take action towards what I wanted to do. Because my habit says, no, dude, do it. It feels good. Like, this is what everyone does. But my dream says you can't. So if I stop the habit, then the question arises, why aren't you doing that? And then that's where I would have to commit to what I believe in. And so before, I never created an environment that asked me to commit to what I believed in. But I was walking around carrying my dreams and my visions, not meeting my needs, draining my energy, and wanting to do something, but just kind of drowning. And then as soon as I eliminated those things, then in order to keep going, I had to take confident action. And no one raised me to do that in the ways that I needed to do. So I didn't really know it was accessible to me until I kind of stumbled into it. But from that point, I stopped smoking weed, I stopped smoking cigarettes, stopped drinking. Cold turkey. I haven't smoked anything in years. I'll use cannabis intentionally from time to time in like an edible form, but I don't drink at all. And anytime I put something in my body that changes my state, it's now in a context of how it's pushing me further towards what I want to be rather than just existing. So I really was able to go cold turkey on all these things, um, because my entire system and my identity and my belief and my core was guiding me. So I had stopped substances in phases before, but I didn't have a purpose and a reason to do it. I just did. It's like I wasn't around people or I was around people. But when I made the decision grounded in what was most true to me, there's no desire at all to go back to those things, which I think is really powerful and to a lot of people more accessible than they would think.
Yeah, I guess I'm like at the point now where like occasionally I'll drink or I mean I don't get drunk really anymore, but like I'll occasionally use like weed like recreationally and stuff. But there was a period where I was using like edibles regularly to kind of, and this is before I went on medication for my depression because I think for me personally I just like had a biochemical thing I needed to fix with the and the
Hmm.
only antidepressants were able to help that. But before I was did that, I used to like self medicate, take a lot of edibles to kind of escape myself because I felt like, oh, I couldn't really connect to people and like I wasn't happy with like how like I wasn't happy with my interactions. Like I felt like I didn't connect with people in the way I wanted to. So like I'd take edibles to kind of escape myself and like escape like this kind of emptiness I felt, and like I feel like that kind of got, even though there's not like a lot of side effects with edibles, like I feel like it got kind of like destructive, to just do it like a regular basis like that. So I kind of got out of that with just focusing on my purpose and like what I want to do, like the things that give me meaning, like doing this show or like other creative outlets and like setting goals and like putting the focus on myself. So that my life isn't dependent on like other people's validation and like um, that I can kind of be like my own validator and like happy with myself. And
Yeah.
then I don't need to just use substances to kind of escape myself or um, it's just better that way. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we realize in those situations that we can create our own feedback loops. Like when we're in those states where we're using substances, it's because we're in a place where we're not getting that validation, not getting that positive feedback, and we're not experiencing a sense of meaning and moving towards something we believe in or growing in our process or something like that. And the substance helps take us out of that reality or create a sense of positivity that is kind of illusory. But
yeah.
when we realize we can take action in small ways, then am I lagging right now? Computer's being a little weird.
Oh no, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, when we realize we can take action in small ways and start creating that loop, then it makes those bigger things a lot less scary. Like I'm a very big dreamer, and I'm grateful for that. But to step right into my biggest dream is terrifying. It's like the thing we're afraid of most is actually facing the thing we want to do the most. As a
So
musician,
like
it's like,
shorter term goals is what you're saying, like a
yes,
shorter
and like
term.
really
Yeah.
short term goals. Like I'm gonna wake up and get a glass of water and realize that the way that I'm living, not everyone has water even, but for me, I have water every morning, and I can let that become an experience that fuels positivity for me. Because maybe, and I've been in this situation, right, where like I had that rock bottom kind of moment where I didn't know what I could do to make my life better at all. But I realized if I just got up and had a glass of water, I would feel better. And so unconsciously, the next day I did that, I was like,
Mhm.
ah, I feel so good about this decision. And it's so silly to some people, but that's something I still do to this day. And I've been really active sharing
Hmm.
hydrate yourself on social
Yeah.
media because it's so
Yeah.
fun. But that actually
Maybe I'll take
primes
that
us.
into consideration. Yeah, because I usually I wake up and the first thing I have is a coffee. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll maybe that yeah that wouldn't hurt to have like
Yeah. And
water as the first
it's
thing
like just have a
before the
glass
coffee.
of
Yeah,
water first, chill for a second, and then have the coffee and just
yeah,
create a little bit more space and put intention into it. Like the intention is where you really gain something. If you just slug the water down and it's like good, you have more water. But the power comes in putting more sense of gratitude in it and just giving yourself 30 seconds or a minute to just breathe and put positive association in and and attach that to your ability to act in the world. You're saying, I made the decision to get this glass of water and I feel good about it. And that same pattern in your brain, that same neurology, same feelings in your emotional body and in your body become the feelings that you have when you do bigger tasks. So when I go and I make the song that I've been wanting to make my whole life, and I go, yes, I made this. It's the same feeling as I got this glass of water. So we can find ways to like understand the fundamental positive experience and constantly live that through small actions, not the big ones. And because we're so programmed on specific ways we dress or show up because of our culture, we lose sight of the small things and we get focused on the big
yeah.
ones. And the only way to get the big things is to take baby steps.
Well, also I think that's with people like you and me, where like the stuff we want to do, it's like we got to promote ourselves. We kind of need to brand ourselves in some way because I feel like you kind of have a brand or like a style. Like that's just part of like the
Yeah.
marketing
And
too. So
that's
like, maybe
okay,
that's ways
right?
easy.
It's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
contextualizing it. Like recognizing that you have to build into that and like brand is something that I think we can reveal too. Like you if you try to come up with a brand and then become it, sometimes that works, but often it's a process where you have an idea of a brand and it helps you discover yourself more and then the brand changes until there's an alignment of what you feel on
yeah,
the inside and what the brand projects. But it's a you have to take massive action though. You have to engage with the brand. You have to create it. You have to try it, and that's where I think people just get stumped, and that's where I was stumped for so long. I didn't know how to take action, and people laugh at the things that are great for you. People laugh at eating healthy. People laugh at everything, and so being able to show up for yourself and like whatever energy you have to create to protect your energy initially and show up, I think is fine. Uh, like if you have to be a little bit angry and put up a wall, like do that. Push some people away and be like, I'm eating healthy. Fuck you, you know. But
yeah,
if you could be loving and kind, that's fine too.
yeah. Well, sometimes it's better to just kind of do your own thing to be around than be around people that are negative for you or not helping you get
Yes.
where you want to be and aren't
Yeah, and that was my journey. Like I slowly realized stuff about myself when I changed my patterns. Relationships around me changed without me trying to change them because I was no longer
Yeah,
engaging in substances the way other people were. I started changing because I wasn't high or drunk or tired. So I just watched the ripple effect where it felt like I didn't really change. If anything, I was just more of myself and everyone else around me changed. My opportunities changed and my path in life went a totally different direction. And it was empowering in that way because it didn't feel like I was laboring for everything. It felt like I was receiving a lot instead of having to put out a lot. So it's
yeah.
really
It's
ironic.
kind of like yeah, it's kind of like how they say like you attract what you are. Like So it's like if
Exactly.
you work on yourself and you improve yourself, it's like you don't even have to go out of your way to end those toxic relationships. I think you just naturally kind of drift
Yeah.
apart and find people more on your wavelength and more,
Exactly.
that
And it
share your
revealed to
values.
me cycles that we go through in relationships. Like I was able to go, oh wow, I see what started this relationship, what supported it, and how it's fizzling out. And then at each phase, there are pivotal moments that we sometimes can notice as they're happening, but when we reflect, we can definitely see where maybe we wanted to have a conversation to get closure, or we chose to, or ways that we invited people into our lives. And so, walking through what were negative experiences and draining experiences in my life actually helped me a lot to understand the cycles that I go through in growing as a person in a community. And so now I'm in a place in my life where the communities and people that I'm involved with are either on the same page as me, doing great things like me, or beyond me. And I've worked really hard to get to that place. And a lot of it was inner work, but it was also just doing the same shit that I was doing before, same everyday chop wood, carry water, but towards a different place. So like initially I'm cutting all this draining energy out of my life. I'm building new patterns and I gain a new sense of being and I can kind of attract that into my life. But what I found is we need to continue to engage with the world. And the world is in a much more neutral place than a higher vibrational loving state all the time. So
Yeah.
naturally, we're going to kind of balance out and continue to flow. But what I found is that I can work day jobs, I can move through different places, but I can be in a new state. I can be in a new community, and I can be around people with different intentions long term. So I think that's another thing
So
people can get caught up in, where like they don't actually continue to make big leaps in their life when they need to, because it's hard and
that,
it's scary. But like the once you gain a greater capacity to nourish yourself and meet your needs, then the universe is going to give you bigger opportunities to take. Otherwise, you'll stagnate there and you'll keep trying to search for like, oh, why don't I feel blissful all the time? I'm meditating every day. I'm doing all the things. And it's like, no, you have to live life and you might have to suffer again, but for something good this time.
yeah, and taking the smaller steps, I guess, like small, tangible, rather than just having it
Exactly.
be like a big goal in the future. Because then that you have to do it step by step to lead there. So
Yes. Like if I weighed my value in just me feeling like my heart is open all the time and I'm on a high vibration, then my value would be zero because I'm never like that all the time. But if I weigh my value on right now in this moment, what's the best I can do for myself? And that doesn't mean that it's good. It just means what's the best. Like sometimes the best is not getting the glass of water. Sometimes I just can't. But that's the best I can do. You know, that's how I weigh my value. And that gives me a huge opportunity to continue to push the ball forward and whatever is accessible to me in the moment. So that has allowed me to go from situations where I feel like I have everything and I'm embodying this great positive energy and let go of it and say, I don't need to stay in this right now because I want to create greater change in the world. And the opportunities I see are requiring me to go through challenges that I don't know I can overcome, but I'm willing to risk. So I'll sacrifice that and I'll focus on the small things like the water again. So instead of meditating and having the best energy, my goal is just to drink water every day. And I'll continue down the path and I'll meet that positive energy, that high vibrational state later. And I think if we all do that, then we raise the bar where going into the real world is more and more naturally conducive to that wholeness. But it takes a lot of risk and a lot of just repeating these cycles.
and do you think, I guess the main thing is knowing like what your purpose is and knowing what it is like what it is that you're passionate about? Does that help with filling that void, or
Um, I
what
think it
would you say that's the
does.
main thing? Or?
If you have a clear sense of what of a thing, I think that's really helpful. But I also don't think it's necessary because I think it's always a process. And so I knew early on I wanted to be a musician. I'm really grateful for that. When I was very young, I tapped a lot, and my parents were like, "Oh, he's a musician," and just guided me right towards that. So as soon as I could think, I wanted to do music. A lot of people don't have that. And the thing is, even though it was brief for me, I had a period where I was discovering, where I was just free and I was just doing stuff. And with the environment communicating to me and me reacting, I decided on musician. So that process can last 30, 40 years for some people. And I think that's totally okay. And it doesn't mean that they're going slow or that something's wrong. I think it's just different. And I think if people recognize that it is a process and not a destination, that you don't need to know the thing, but you just have to recognize I'm discovering the thing, then that's totally okay. Because even me, I have greater visions than music that I want to integrate my musician nature into, and that's been a constant process of discovery. So while many people in the world will ask me, "Do you still do music? Are you doing music?" and they have no idea of the greater vision and discovery process I'm involved in. So it's like, yes, I'm doing music, and there's more there. But now I have this awareness that I'm 27 now. I'm a little baby. I have plenty of time to figure out whatever it is that I'm doing. Um, so I'm kind of a combination of like, I know something certain about myself, but I'm also discovering. And for me, I find meaning in being engaged with the process. So the fact that I am choosing to continue discovering intentionally is what makes me feel whole. And that I'm choosing to accept the moments where I'm really confused about it so that I can get to the point where I have clarity and then laugh about it all in the end. Like that is where I get the meaning from. So it's like every aspect of our human experience basically holds a little piece of the pie. And the issue is just when we get stuck and we don't move through it. So if you know what you're doing, it will help you move quicker. But if you don't know what you're doing, you can still walk.
Yeah, it's it's focusing more on the journey than the destination. Like knowing, I think
100%.
when you follow like the path of your heart, kind of, the path that makes sense to you. It's just focusing on the path one step at a time and just finding meaning in that, and just kind of
Yeah,
seeing where
because we change
it
too.
go.
Like,
Yeah,
what if I wake up tomorrow and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do music at all. I know it sounds crazy, but I had this feeling and I see a totally different paths for me. And if I'm attached to being a musician, then I lose out on that, you know?
yeah, and like you said, sometimes it takes a while. Like that's why you can't compare your timeline to somebody else. Like I feel like in a
Yeah,
lot of ways I was more of a late bloomer, and I started finding more myself more. And I'm in my 30s now, but like I
yeah.
started finding myself more like in this age range than I did
But like you're
in
still
my
a
20.
baby.
It's just like yeah,
I really anyone under
yeah,
40 to me, I know I'm 27, so it's easy to say, but anyone under 40 to me is still a child. Like
yeah,
there's so much life to live
yeah.
on this planet
Yeah,
and
and it's weird. Like it's 20. Like now, 27 feels so young to me. It's like when I was 27, like I was just like that. That was before like I started really like dealing with my depression stuff. But like I remember like back then, I think like, oh, I'm 27. All my years are behind me. Now, like back and like just realize how ridiculous that was. Like
yeah.
27 just seems so young to me now. Yeah,
Yeah, and like we really have control over how we choose to see our age and it's not important to me. When I was 24, I had this sense of like, wow, age is just a number, and I really felt it. It wasn't just an idea. I was like, this doesn't mean anything. And I have so many friends that are like mid 30s, late 30s, and they treat me like peers. And I have people that are younger than me, older than me.
Yeah.
It all blurs together. And I always like to say, like, we're all the same age. Like, the whole universe came from one point. Everything that exists is technically the same
Yeah.
age. Um, so yeah, like functionally, we have a large span of our life where whatever we want to do is achievable if we make the decisions to support ourselves in it.
Yeah, and I just was remembering like in high school, like or like even when I was like 15, I look up to like a senior and think they had more experience. Like I looked up to someone who was 18, and it's like you get to that age, you're like, wow, like it's just you don't necessarily have everything more figured out at an older
Yeah,
age than you did at a younger age. It's like
yeah, yeah. I grew up with an older brother who's 5 years older than me, and 14 older male cousins. So I constantly grew up only being able to do things under the supervision of my elders. And that wasn't necessarily good. But what I experienced, because everyone was like 5 years older than me, a good amount older, I was always confused about what was what and what was reality, what was valuable, and what my identity was. Before I really could even be self-aware, I was experiencing that. And I remember simple things like my brother would get a Nintendo 64 and he's excited about it. I'm like, oh, okay, like that's the thing. When I'm 7, I'll get a Nintendo 64. And then I turn 7 and it's like, oh, I don't get that. And it's like PlayStation 2 is popular now. So it's like every time I got to a level, there was something new that the older person was experiencing that was just a carrot on a stick. And it took me until I was like maybe 14 or 15 to be able to be self-aware and understand that and recognize like, oh wow, their experience of an age is not what mine is, because it's gonna be a different way. And I still had this sense though that like once I was 18 something would change, because I felt really constricted by the school system, and by being a kid I always wanted to be treated like an adult. And so I thought maybe once I'm 18, like things will be different, but nothing changed. So for my 20s and the kind of process I described of making healthy decisions for myself, it was really like a self-initiation into a version of adulthood, or just being myself in a way that I define. So no one really helped me through that. I didn't have rituals, and like I didn't have a bar mitzvah or anything. But I realized, oh shit, I'm 20 something, no one's coming to save me, but I can define what I am, and I can start to do that. So I think there's some really interesting overlaps between that and that journey.
yeah, like like before you felt like you had to, I guess, be like somebody else, like you wanted to be more like your older brother, and then you realize like there is no point where you get there. It's more finding your own path. Or, is that what you're
Yeah,
saying? Or
because once you're an adult, you gain that capacity to self-reflect. Like our teenage years, when we start going through puberty, then we start thinking about ourselves, and our brains kind of get that. But once we get into our 20s, I think we can really start to see ourselves. And that's when I was able to go, oh, the things that I'm giving credit to external sources for are things that are happening inside of me. So I was saying as a little kid that the Nintendo 64 was bringing joy. But the real thing is the joy comes from within me in response to anything I can engage with in the
yeah,
world. So, yeah,
yeah. If you were born in like 1910 before PlayStation, you could have found that joy in something, that same joy, before video
exactly.
games even existed. So
Yeah. And so reorienting in my 20s was good because I had that direction of musicianship. So I was able to say, oh, I know the thing that I want to focus cultivating my joy on, and I'm committed to it. So maybe that's like the usefulness of knowing what you want to do in the world, is it gives you an anchor of something to relate to build the sense of fullness that you have inside. And it can be tricky if you don't have that anchor point. But some people thrive in that too. So I really think there's no absolutes.
and yeah, I was just thinking how you said that it's okay if it changes like what you want and stuff too. Because I was thinking, like, when I was younger, like, being in a band, music was my thing too. And then when that didn't work out, like, then I started listening to a lot of podcasts. This was like 2012, 2013, and like just like these in-depth conversations and like interesting interviews. I was like, oh, I kind of want to start a show where I get to talk to interesting people. And then that's when I started my first show, BSing with Sean K, and I kind of got on the path more that I'm on now, of just like doing these podcasts, of having like meaningful conversations or having people tell their stories. So,
And now,
yeah,
when you look at that, can you see how different aspects of your journey helped you do the things you're more focused on now? Like, was being
yeah,
a musician helping you get certain skills that now you use over here and stuff like that?
yeah. It's kind of like it all falls into place. I'm like, oh, I wish things didn't go that way, but it's like, wait, because that happened, that led me to meet this person, and this good thing happened. So it's kind of like I gotta. It's just trusting that everything's kind of falling into place in the right way, and to kind of just trust the way things go. I
Yeah.
guess because one thing, yeah, because you look back
Yeah,
on your
I
journey, you
really
see how
relate to
one thing,
that.
yeah, yeah,
Like, as I've built a bigger and bigger vision, and kind of realized that if I'm visioning something, I can't wait for someone else to do it. I have to take responsibility for that. Um, I've realized that, oh man, this is so big. Like, I can't possibly comprehend all of this. But I can tell myself, at first a little bit delusionally, that everything I'm doing is working towards that vision in some way. And this phrase, the path illuminates as you walk, is great. Where if I act as if that's the truth and I start walking, I learn through the process. So I've gotten to a point where like so much about my life is constantly unknown in my day to day. But when I look back after a month or 2 months or a year, I'm like, holy shit, I've gotten so far and I'm going right towards where I think I want to go. And I've done that enough times now over the past couple of years where I'm used to it. But it's the same process where you might not know what you're building towards, but you start piecing it together little by little. And then eventually there's a point where enough comes into your awareness and you develop enough in the world where a clear thing has been pieced together. You built a house out of all these components. So I orient my life towards like trying to get supplies, and like I gain skills over here so that I can use those skills to build my house over here. So when I
yeah,
work a job I don't want to work, I'm like, well, what is this teaching me? If I'm working in a cafe or something, oh, I can talk to people. I could do X, Y, Z, and I think naturally we will build things out of the different stuff we do, but we can also speed up that process if we kind of seek to have that,
yeah.
and that's
Or
another
like
thing
if
I
you're a
didn't do.
writer, yeah. And I was just thinking, like, if you're a writer, like I was just thinking, Charles Bukowski wrote a whole book about his post office job that he hated, and that ended up being one of his famous books, Post Office.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like not being attached to the final form of something really helps there, because I had so much resistance to doing anything that wasn't directly aligned with my vision because I felt threatened by it for a long time. Like a lot of people don't see other creatives' visions or value them, and so it can be really hard to put yourself out in the world and like go through the process. And like doing day job stuff for a lot of creatives feels like you're sacrificing your life, like you're leaving something behind. But I started to realize that the experiences of that are something that, at least for me, I was going to face no matter what. And when I ultimately had to, I started looking at it in constructive ways. And even though I still didn't like it at the time, because I looked at it constructively and I reflected on it, I found that it was purely a positive thing. Like it sucked in the short term, but actually no aspect of any of those experiences were bad, and they all helped me go directly where I wanted to go. So it's this reinforcement of like, I don't know anything about what I'm supposed to be doing. like
yeah.
I would have said all of this would be bad for me, and it taught me everything I needed to know. So it's all about like, can you withstand the experience that you can learn from?
And being open too, not um,
Yes.
maybe being expecting, oh, things need to go this way to get there, like saying, oh, how can I take advantage of this moment? What am I learning from this? And it relates to
Mhm.
being present, like you said. So
Yes, yes. Like it's like the fundamental things are being present and working on, the little things and developing the capacity to move through life experiences. And then that all creates enough space where your intentions can start to guide you. And so if you don't have that space, then the intentions you have are just wilting away inside of you. And I think that is what is truly painful. Whereas meeting the world and the hard parts of the world is just like working out. You got to tear some muscles to build some muscles. And then once you have the muscle, it's not so hard to keep it on. Like once you've made that space,
yeah.
it's much easier to keep adding more intention and getting where you want to be.
And you never know who you're going to meet out there too. Like you could be working a shitty job and then meet
Yeah.
someone who helps you with what you do want to do. You can meet
Well,
someone you're
here's
networking with
an
that you,
amazing
yeah.
example of that. So I moved to New York State in July of 2023. And that was a very sudden move for me. And I went and got a job at a natural market in the town of Beacon. And I never really enjoyed working at those places, but I said, well, I need to make money. I can get discounted food. There were all these benefits that I could embrace, even though I was getting paid like $15 an hour, which was not enough money. And I thought, well, if I go and work at this place and they had a little deli counter where they did juices and like smoothies and stuff, I'm like, well, I can learn how to do smoothies and juices and I'll meet people. So I will get paid to be in a point where I interact with local people every day. So I'll be able to figure out the vibe of the place and expand quickly. And sure enough, one of the people that I met there just so happened to have this background intention of like, I'm gonna meet someone special at a deli counter. Like sometimes people just have those uh, enchanted fantasy-like ideas of like this person is a unique character in a movie, right? And I showed up in welcoming that experience of like maybe there are people that I can connect with and have valuable experiences. And so now that's someone that I work for that is another conscious intentional creator that is trying to create the same kind of visions that I am in the world. So I took a job that I knew was undervaluing me, but I made it into something that I could get value from. And now it's part of the reason why I don't have to work that job. So
Yeah.
I
So you
did the
found the
job
better
for a
job through
while and it
working that job.
sucked, but I
Yeah.
transcended it. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
that exact example.
Yeah. And that's well, like for the stuff that you and me want to do. I mean, it's both like related to like I guess like entertainment in one way or another. It's like
Hmm.
or like media with me. It's all about networking and who you know too. So it's like
Yeah.
the more people you can meet, the better.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love networking and community. Like that really is my job these days. I like to say like just
Yeah.
trying to serve people in any way I can because our natural value will get noticed by people that care about us when we're in the right environments. So I do a lot of volunteering in communities, and then over time, when organizations grow, the volunteer positions become paid volunteer positions, or there are higher roles that people will upgrade you to. Um, so I show up in every space that I'm curious about, and I just try to find out how I can help. Because as soon as I start helping, people start seeing my value, and I start learning about myself. And it's like I could work in a kitchen, I could be a musician, I could do whatever it is, but I just work for the community, and that starts supporting me. And I
Yeah.
think media is absolutely kind of the focus that I have as an individual, communicating ideas and trying to translate the things associated with greater visions into the culture is what I'm passionate about. But I work from the ground floor where most of my time right now is I'm actually part of the culture. I'm part of moving the hands and feet, doing it so that I have ground to stand on.
Yeah. And I was just thinking on the flip side, like sometimes starting with certain things could be hard because you need to find, sometimes you need to find, like if you want to do a band, you have to find people who are as dedicated as you, and sometimes that could take time. And then sometimes it's like, oh, what do I do on my own in the meantime? Or if you're a filmmaker, it's like you got to find people that'll be dedicated to putting together the film. Like it's sometimes it's like difficult if like what you want to do is like you need to get other people on board before you can
Yeah.
really do it. I mean, you could take like the little steps like writing the script or writing the songs, but it's like then you need like other people in the band and other people to work on the film, and sometimes it's like then you gotta find the dedicated people. So then like I think before you find the dedicated people, then sometimes it could be like, okay, so like how do I find motivation in the meantime? I was just thinking that example,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I totally feel that. Like I went through a process of trying to just develop myself as a musician and just as a person so that I could show up in really intelligent conversations and high level music collaborations. And that was a large part of the journey. And then like understanding how to choose people to create with in the world, whether it's a business partner, romantic partner, that's its own process. And I think they can overlap. They do feedback on each other. Like when you jam with a band, you get better, you learn about it. But there is some sort of like general phase I think we go through too, where sometimes we need to be more in isolation and find ourselves and then come out of that. Um, but ultimately, I've found that when we gather enough information, we can make decisions that make it more effortless. Like another job that I do right now, I work in a kitchen, but it's a kitchen at Cosm, which is this place in Wappingers, New York. It's an art gallery and a piece of property that Alex and Allison Gray own. They're these famous psychedelic painters. And so I work in a kitchen there. So I've upgraded my kitchen job to a kitchen job in a visionary art community. And because of that, I don't just work with random people, but I work with another musician. So I spend 8 hours a day, at least once a week, with someone else who knows everything I know about music. And now we jam. And now a band is starting to form. So, like the being able to cultivate a certain version of yourself so that you can get in better and better environments allows the environment to work for you. And so
yeah,
when people don't take that step to fail to get to a better environment, then it stagnates the learning process. And I hear lots of stories of like people can't hire people that want to work for their business, or they just can't find a drummer that's consistent and like recurring patterns, you know? But I think if we learn from other people's experience, we'll see that to get a good drummer that shows up all the time, you might have to go through 10 that don't. And so trying to move through that process efficiently is great. So it's like setting your fears instead of your
yeah.
goals can really work for you.
Yeah. And then not having that time to kind of find yourself, then when you are with people, you're going to be more like saying what you think people want to hear, or more susceptible to peer pressure rather than just saying what you genuinely think, because it's like, oh, I'm happy with myself and my own truth, so I'm just going to speak my own truth, and it'll resonate with some, not with others. And then but if you can't do that, then you can't really connect. So like that's when you connect, is like when you know yourself, and then you put the authenticity out there that people
Yeah,
can
and again, baby steps. Like for me, it started with trying to, and sometimes this is a big step, but for me, it started with trying to show up authentically in my family, just the people I was seeing every day. And that helped. Like it helps practice communication skills, and especially with family, it teaches you a lot about yourself because you've absorbed a lot of patterns from them. But like just working with people close to you, if you have supportive people, you can say, hey, like I'm trying to discover myself more, I'm trying to be more authentic, and so I'm going to try this for a change, I'm going to try this on, I'm doing this now. And some people will be really supportive, and then other situations you can create for yourself. Like before I was doing a lot of performances, I would practice in my room, and then before I performed on a big stage, I would go to an open mic. And so like I scaled everything in my life so that everything more or less felt the same level of challenge, but I was growing to meet the challenge, and that really helps. So now I can show up in a variety of environments. Like one day I'm in
Hmm.
the kitchen, and then one day I'm leading a volunteer group, and so I could be at the top or the bottom of a role, but it's the same kind of experience, and I stay in the landscape I want to be in after doing
Yeah.
all that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the more you know, the better. Because I was just thinking, like at one point, I was kind of like teaching myself a bit of like HTML and stuff, and I'm like, well, okay, well, am I getting too scattered? Because I wanted to focus on working in like media production, like video editing, audio editing, and but then I look at jobs that are at like production companies, like TV production companies or like broadcasting companies, and then sometimes there's jobs that say, oh, knows basic knowledge of HTML. So it's like you never know, like job like that can help, like knowing something you think is unrelated too. So anything, it never hurts to like learn different things. Like it can relate to your main thing and you don't know it. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
worst case scenario, if you learn something new, you get better at learning. So it's like even if you never used HTML ever again, that time you spent engaging with your learning process helps you learn whatever does serve you. So there's a way to look at everything with a constructive twist, you know?
yeah, yeah, definitely. And the I know the original thing I said at the beginning, before I wrap up, because like the original thing at the beginning was like how feeling that fullness. I
Mhm.
just wanted to make a point that I think that when religions talk about God, or like spiritual talk about God, I think that's, at least from my perspective, that's what God is that fullness. I think it's within you, and it's like within all of us, and like something we can tap into. I know some other people like that are more traditionally religious view it as like an outside force, but to me,
Mhm.
that's more what like God is, and like I think it's a state you can reach, like even as a atheist. It's just that that inner faith and that inner peace and that inner happiness that's kind of unconditional to the outside world. That's what God is, at least to me. So
Absolutely. Yeah, like cultivating the divine within. It's a relationship with that within yourself. Like that's what we experience as children, and then we get confused in the world, and then we come back to it, realizing that all our joy is something we source internally. Everything beautiful we see outside of ourselves is something that is inside of us. And um, in that way, God exists outside of us too. Like everything we
yeah,
interact with is part of God. So maybe I would say that it's an ongoing relationship, that's neither internal or external.
it's like
But
everything, like kind of both, like everything. Go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, like
yeah,
because feedback loops are a really powerful part of it. Um, but I think it's very true across religions that people talk about, your internal garden or the kingdom of heaven is within
yeah,
you, and that kind of idea. And I think as human beings, the unique challenge is that we can't exist alone. We need each other, and we need the environment. So although it might be true that the divinity is within you, you can't access it by yourself.
yeah. Well, maybe it's kind of like because we all kind of come from the same matter. It's like we're all like the divine. Since the divine like made us, we're all the divine too. Like I think even in like
Yeah,
traditional, like even in the Bible, it says um, it made us in our own His own image. So it's
yeah,
kind of
we're
like
all God's children, right?
yeah. So like
Yeah,
then we all have that kind of divine power we can tap into too. But it's like it's not just us; it's everything. So
yeah,
that's like we're always connected. I guess that's why when you find that within, then you feel more connected because then you realize, oh, we're not all separate. We're all connected to everything. So
yes. And you gain access to seeing that in other people. Like it's been much easier for me to have compassion for other people when I recognize that sense of wholeness and divinity within, and then I go and meet someone that's really angry, instead of just seeing them as their anger, I see the part of them that mirrors that wholeness and that love that I can feel deep down within the anger.
yeah,
And I've had experiences so many times where, because I can see deeper into that possibility, people's reactions to how I show up are different, and the anger can dissolve, or different things. Or worst case scenario, they stay angry and my cups stay full.
Well, even like I was thinking with people who talk about people who are negative about other people, like I try to look at it as okay, they just feel really bad about themselves.
That's all it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Usually judgments are just a judgment on your own ego, because you feel limited internally. There's hidden beliefs there.
yeah. And if you were
Yeah.
truly happy, why would you spend all that time focusing on what you didn't like? Like even if there was a person you didn't like, why would you spend all your time focusing on them? You would just be like, oh, yeah, I'm not even going to think about them. It
Yeah.
was,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
that it can be kind of related to the way I was talking about doubts before, where when you're judging other people, it's because you have insecurities about yourself and you don't have a sense of certainty about what you're doing. So you need to judge other people to contextualize your own existence. Whereas people that are naturally confident tend to feel secure about themselves and don't care about other people unless they're actually causing harm. But most of the time, we're not causing each other harm. We're just existing. And it's the identity that feels threatened because it doesn't know its place in the world if someone is doing something, you know?
yeah. And I've also heard. I mean, I don't know if it's true in every case. I think sometimes it could just be maybe trauma from like negative experiences, but I think sometimes like people who are honest and um, trustworthy with others will assume other people are that way, and then dishonest people or people who aren't always honest with others will assume other people are that way. But I
Yes.
think it could also be like sometimes maybe if someone's been hurt in the past with trauma, they could have doubts about others, so it could go either way. But I think in some cases that could be true. So
Yeah, I think we generally seek our own reflection out of other people, you know? Whether that's good or bad, and we draw that out and we create those self-reinforcing patterns. Um, yeah, like what I was saying about being positive, seeing through someone's anger, I can then transform that with that person and that experience. But if I was angry, then we would make more anger. So it doesn't necessarily mean that people are more loving or more negative or angry, but that we have control to some extent, that we can influence that
yeah, and I
based
was just
on what
thinking
we
like yeah, and I was just thinking like when you watch like heated debates like on shows and everything, like a lot of times I noticed the other person didn't even really hear or understand what the other person
do.
said. They just kind of heard what
Yeah.
they wanted to hear, and then yeah,
Yeah, I think it's so beneficial to have open communication, ask questions, and be curious and be redundant in conversations. Like if you think you know what someone said, but you're not sure, you could always ask for clarity,
yeah,
and yeah,
listen to
guiding with a sense of
understand.
wholeness allows us to do that. Like when I'm not even insecure on subtle levels, like I'm willing to go, oh yeah, I didn't hear what you said. Some people don't want to say that. They're like, no, I just want to pretend like I heard what they said. It's like, no, I feel whole. I can ask. I can be confused. I
Yeah,
can be all these things. It's like funny how wholeness allows us to be imperfect as well.
yeah,
So it's not even a state of perfectness.
and I guess like ego or pride can not let us see that kind of hit.
Yeah. Yeah, the wholeness transcends the ego and pride.
Yeah, and I think we
Wow.
need an ego to a degree because like that's how you function. What you need kind of like an identity, but it's like not being too attached to it. I think is what it is.
Yeah, balancing that guy.
Yeah. Well, any final thoughts or anything you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Final thoughts. Yeah, just drink more water, keep things simple, and believe in your own ability to expand over time through small, consistent actions. And I would advise everyone to seek evidence for that being the best way to live. Because if you look for that and create self-reinforcing patterns based off of small, consistent things in life, whatever it is that you're doing will improve.
Nice. Yeah, yeah, I agree, and I also, I guess, my final thoughts would just be kind to yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself. Just view yourself as a friend. Like, how would you view a friend making mistakes or being imperfect or not getting to a certain point at a certain time. Just you can recognize your imperfections and where you need to improve, but don't come from a place of don't be angry at yourself about it. Just be like, okay, I'm good as I am, but I could be better in this and that way, and come from a compassionate place with it. Don't be hard on yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on, man. It's been a good chat.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I feel like we went through a lot of stuff. I hope people really enjoy this, and looking forward to hearing more of your episodes too. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Yeah, and you want to keep updated with future episodes of Let's Talk About the Deep Stuff. I'm on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also look up on social media. Let's Talk About the Deep Stuff. And that's about it for this episode. We'll catch you on the next one.